The engine idles in the dark. It is a Thursday night in late October 1992, and the parking lot behind the shuttered roller rink on Staten Island smells like wet asphalt and rust. Frank Delaney sits alone in his bureau sedan, windows cracked just enough to let the cold seep in. He watches the entrance through the rearview mirror, one hand resting on the wheel, the other on the folded newspaper concealing a mini cassette recorder. The lot is supposed to be empty. It is not quite empty enough. Somewhere beyond the fence line, a dog barks twice and stops. Delaney does not move. He has learned that stillness is a kind of language in this work, a signal that says you are not afraid, even when you are. The headlights sweep across the cracked pavement at 10:23. The car is a dark blue Oldsmobile, unremarkable, its plates registered to a dead man's widow in Bensonhurst. It pulls in slowly, too slowly, and parks 3 spaces away. The driver does not get out right away. Delaney counts the seconds. 38. Then the door opens, and a man steps into the light. His name is Anthony Russo, though the files call him Tony Matches because of the way he used to start fires in the back rooms of businesses that refused to pay. He is 41 years old, 5'9", with thinning hair and the kind of face that disappears in a crowd. He has killed 2 men, maybe 3, depending on whose version of the Borelli hit you believe. Tonight he is wearing a brown leather jacket and jeans, and his hands are shaking as he crosses the lot toward Delaney's car. Delaney unlocks the passenger door without looking at him. Russo slides in and closes it quietly behind him. For a moment, neither man speaks. The only sound is the faint hum of the dashboard heater and the distant hiss of traffic on the expressway. Russo smells like cigarettes and sweat, and something sharper, something Delaney recognizes as fear. It is the smell of a man who knows he has already crossed a line he cannot uncross. Delaney reaches down and presses the record button beneath the newspaper. The tiny motor engages with a whisper. "You alone?" Delaney asks. His voice is calm, almost gentle. Russo nods. His eyes flick to the rearview mirror, then to the side mirror, then back to his lap. "Yeah, I'm alone." Delaney does not believe him, but he does not say so. Instead, he waits. Waiting is the second language of this work. After a long silence, Russo reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded envelope. Inside are 3 hand-drawn maps, a list of names written in blue ink, and a set of codes used to schedule meetings without saying where or when. Delaney takes the envelope and sets it on the dashboard without opening it. "Tell me about Gravano," he says. Russo exhales slowly, like a man trying to hold on to something that is already slipping away. "He knows," Russo says quietly. "He doesn't know it's me, but he knows someone's talking. He's been asking questions, weird questions, about who was where, who said what. He's testing people." Delaney's jaw tightens, but his face does not change. "How much time do we have?" "I don't know," Russo admits. His voice cracks slightly on the last word. "Maybe a week, maybe less. Sammy's smart. He doesn't need proof. He just needs a feeling." Delaney considers this. Salvatore Gravano, known to the world as Sammy the Bull, is the underboss of the Gambino crime family, a man who has orchestrated more than a dozen murders and walked away from every one of them. He is methodical, paranoid, and ruthlessly efficient. If he suspects Russo, it is only a matter of time before Russo disappears. Delaney knows this. Russo knows this. And yet here they are, in a parking lot on Staten Island, trading secrets for survival. "What do you want?" Delaney asks. It is the question that matters most. Russo looks at him for the first time since getting into the car. His eyes are red-rimmed and exhausted, the eyes of a man who has not slept in days. "I want out," he says. "I want witness protection. I want a new name, a new place. I want to be done." Delaney nods slowly. "And what are you giving me in return?" Russo's hands stop shaking. For a moment, he looks almost calm, as if saying the words out loud has released something inside him. "I'm giving you everything," he says. "The Borelli hit, the union scam in Jersey, the drug pipeline through Red Hook. I'm giving you names, dates, money trails. I'm giving you enough to bring down half the family." Delaney studies him in the dim light. He has heard this kind of talk before. Informants always believe they are giving you everything, but what they are really giving you is just enough to save themselves. Still, Russo is different. He is not a street soldier trying to dodge a weapons charge. He is a made man, a connected earner, someone who has sat at tables where decisions are made. If even half of what he is offering is true, it could be the break the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been waiting for. But there is a cost. There is always a cost. Delaney thinks of the men Russo has killed. He thinks of their families, their funerals, the empty chairs at dinner tables. He thinks of the prosecutors who will one day have to put Russo on a witness stand and ask a jury to trust him. "You understand what this means," Delaney says. It is not a question. Russo looks away out the window, toward the fence line where the dog has started barking again. "Yeah," he says quietly. "I understand." Delaney reaches for the envelope and opens it. Inside, the maps are detailed and precise, marking safe houses, meeting spots, and routes used to move money and drugs across the city. The names on the list include capos, enforcers, and associates, men who have spent decades avoiding the kind of scrutiny that Russo is now handing to Delaney on a piece of paper. The codes are simple but effective, a language of misdirection that has kept the family's operations invisible for years. Delaney folds the envelope and slips it into his jacket. "I'll need you to come in tomorrow," he says. "We'll start the paperwork. You'll be debriefed by a team. It's going to take time." Russo nods, but he does not look relieved. He looks like a man who has just signed his own death warrant and is waiting for someone to read it aloud. The meeting lasts 11 minutes. When Russo gets out of the car, he does not look back. He walks across the lot to the Oldsmobile, climbs inside, and drives away without turning on his headlights until he reaches the street. Delaney sits in the dark for another 10 minutes, listening to the silence. He rewinds the tape and plays it back, making sure the voices are clear. They are. He labels the cassette with the date and a case number and locks it in the glove compartment. Then he starts the engine and pulls out of the lot. The drive back to the field office in Manhattan takes 40 minutes. Delaney does not turn on the radio. He thinks about Russo's shaking hands. He thinks about Gravano's instincts. He thinks about the families of the men Russo killed, and the fact that those men will never get justice, only a plea deal disguised as cooperation. It is not the first time Delaney has wrestled with this kind of moral calculus. It will not be the last. By the time he reaches the office, it is nearly midnight. The building is quiet, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional click of a keyboard from one of the overnight analysts. Delaney takes the elevator to the 4th floor and walks to his desk. He unlocks the drawer and files the tape with the others. There are 17 now, each one labeled and dated, each one containing the voice of someone who has chosen betrayal over loyalty. He wonders how many of them will still be alive by the end of the year. He wonders how many of them will testify. He wonders if any of it will matter. Carla Ruiz finds him 20 minutes later. She is the lead prosecutor on the Gambino case, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper mind who has spent the last 3 years building a case that could dismantle one of the most powerful crime families in the country. She knocks once and enters without waiting for an answer. "Russo showed?" she asks. Delaney nods. "He showed." "And?" Delaney hands her the envelope. Ruiz opens it and scans the contents quickly, her expression unreadable. When she finishes, she sets it down on the desk and looks at Delaney. "This is good," she says. "This is very good." "You don't look happy." Ruiz leans against the desk and crosses her arms. "That's the job, Frank." Then she says, You think Gravano knows? And Russo knows him better than we do. Then we move fast, Ruiz says. We bring Russo in, we debrief him, and we lock him down before Gravano has a chance to act. Delaney nods, but he does not feel reassured. 3 days later, Russo is sitting in a safe house in Queens, answering questions from a team of agents and prosecutors. He talks for 14 hours straight, pausing only for water and cigarettes. He tells them about the Borelli hit, how it was planned in a restaurant on Mulberry Street and carried out in a basement in Canarsie. He tells them about the union scam, how money was skimmed from construction projects and funneled through shell companies in Delaware. He tells them about the drug pipeline, how heroin moved from Sicily to Red Hook in shipping containers marked as olive oil. He gives them names, dates, and details that no one outside the family should know. And with every word, he digs himself deeper into a hole he will never climb out of. Delaney listens from the next room, watching through a two-way mirror. He watches Russo's face, the way his eyes dart to the door every time someone walks past, the way his hands grip the edge of the table as if holding on will keep him from disappearing. Delaney knows that look. It is the look of a man who has realized too late that there is no such thing as safety, only degrees of danger. On the 4th day, Russo's handler receives a call. It is brief and unremarkable, a wrong number that disconnects after 2 rings. But the number that called is unlisted, and the location traces back to a payphone in Bensonhurst, 3 blocks from a social club controlled by the Gambino family. The handler does not tell Russo about the call. He tells Delaney instead. Delaney runs the number through the system and finds nothing, but the location is enough. Someone is looking, someone is testing, someone knows. That night, Delaney drives to the safe house and sits down with Russo in the small kitchen. The lights are too bright, and the air smells like instant coffee and takeout containers. Russo looks worse than he did in the parking lot. His face is pale, his eyes sunken, and his hands are shaking again. "We're moving you," Delaney says. "Tomorrow morning, different location, different team. We're keeping you off the grid until the grand jury." Russo nods, but he does not look convinced. "It doesn't matter," he says quietly. "They'll find me. They always find people." Delaney does not argue. He knows Russo is probably right. The Mafia has a long memory and a longer reach. But he also knows that the alternative is doing nothing, and doing nothing is not an option. It is the kind of thing you are supposed to say in these moments, even if you are not sure you believe it. Russo looks at him with tired eyes. "Did I?" he asks. Delaney does not answer. That night, Delaney returns to his apartment in Brooklyn. It is a small one-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a brownstone, sparsely furnished and meticulously clean. He pours himself a glass of whiskey and sits by the window, looking out at the street below. He thinks about Russo. He thinks about Gravano. He thinks about the families of the men who will never come home, because someone like Russo decided their lives were worth less than his own survival. He thinks about the prosecutors who will stand in front of a jury and ask them to believe a man who was killed without hesitation. And he thinks about the cost of justice when justice requires you to make deals with the guilty. The next morning, Russo is moved to a new location. The transfer goes smoothly. No one follows. No one calls. For 48 hours, it seems like everything is under control. Then, on the 3rd night, Delaney receives a call from the safe house. Russo is gone. He left through the back door sometime between 2 and 3 in the morning, while the handler was asleep in the next room. He took nothing with him except his jacket and his cigarettes. There is no note. There is no explanation. There is only the empty bed and the open door in the cold October air. Delaney stands in the middle of the safe house and stares at the door. He does not need to ask why Russo ran. He already knows. Russo ran because he realized that witness protection is not protection at all, only a different kind of cage. He ran because he could not live with the weight of what he had done, not to the family but to himself. He ran because sometimes the only choice left is the choice to disappear. 3 days later, Russo's body is found in a drainage ditch in Staten Island. He has been shot twice in the head, execution style. There is no identification on him, no wallet, no keys, just the body and the dirt and the cold. Delaney stands at the edge of the ditch and watches the crime scene techs work. He does not feel anger, he does not feel sorrow, does. He feels something closer to resignation, the quiet understanding that this is how these stories always end. Ruiz arrives an hour later. She stands beside Delaney and stares at the body. "We still have the tapes," she says. Delaney nods. "We do. We can still use them." "We can." Ruiz looks at him. "But you don't think it's enough?" Delaney is quiet for a long time. Then he says, "I think it's never enough." They bury Russo under a name that is not his own, in a grave that no one will visit. The case moves forward without him. The tapes are entered into evidence. The names he gave lead to arrests. The maps he drew become the blueprint for a takedown that will shake the Gambino family to its core. And in the middle of it all, Delaney returns to his desk and files another report and waits for the next voice to break the silence. But there is one more tape. It arrives 3 weeks after Russo's death, delivered to the field office in a plain manila envelope with no return address. Inside is a cassette labeled only with a date. Delaney plays it alone in his office with the door locked and the blinds drawn. The voice on the tape is calm and unhurried, speaking in the kind of measured tone that suggests absolute certainty. It says only one thing: Delaney's home address, 3214 Pacific Street, Brooklyn, New York. 3rd floor apartment, brown door, south-facing window. And then the tape goes silent. Delaney sits in the dark and listens to the empty static. He does not rewind it. He does not label it. He simply ejects it and locks it in his desk drawer. Then he picks up the phone and calls Ruiz. "We have a problem," he says. And somewhere across the city, in a social club on Mulberry Street, Sammy the Bull Gravano sits at a table with a glass of wine and a deck of cards. He does not smile. He does not speak. He simply deals the next hand, knowing that the game is far from over. And in the end, the tapes kept playing long after the voices were gone.